Good morning, friends, and welcome to your virtual art class. I hope you all had a great weekend and you're ready to get started with some more art lessons and to collaborate with music. This week, we are going to work with Miss Songbird and create an artwork that would help you participate in your music assignment. So, as you know, in music, you have been listening and responding to the musical composition called the Carnival of the Animals. And this week, it is highlighting the aquarium. So, many of you may have received a sea animal created out of diffusing paper that looks kind of like this. There's also other animals like a sea turtle and a seahorse and another shaped fish. Many of these were given to your teachers so that you could work along. If you have not received one, I will leave them out by where you can pick up the packets by the office. My only favor is that you just take one of these shapes. Don't take more than one. All right, like I said, this is a special kind of paper and I'm going to show you what you can do with it in just a moment. But before we get started, let's get ourselves centered and ready to create by saying our mantra. Here we go. I am an artist. I create with my hands. I create with my head. I create with my heart. I can create anything. All right, so let's get started. And what you're going to need is your shape, if you have one. And if you don't, you can just pick it up sometime this week. You're going to need some washable markers. You'll need a permanent marker. All right. You might want to use a crayon, and I'm going to show you what we can do with that. And you're going to need some water or something to paint with. Now, a paintbrush is a great thing to use, of course. You might not have a paintbrush at home, so you could use a Q-tip. You could also use a spray bottle, and that will help create a tie-dye effect. I just want to show you at the top of the package here, you can kind of see what's going to happen when you start adding color. And then you get the color wet. So let's begin. Now, before I want to get my paper wet or add anything with the washable markers, I'm going to use my permanent marker, my Sharpie marker, just to create some details. And I use a permanent marker to do this so that they don't get blurry when we start adding water. All right, so you don't have to add details, but this is what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of create like where you might see the separation of the head of the fish and the fish's body. All right, I'm also going to make an eye. All right, and I'm going to make an inner part of the eye so that I can make it glimmer. All right, so now my eyeball is done. Now I could add the rest of my details with my Sharpie marker, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, because I think what I might like to do is add some fish scales and other marks, I'm going to use a white crayon. And I'm going to do that to create that wax resist that we've done before. You don't have to do this. You can just use another color crayon. I'm going to use white because I kind of want it to look like a batik. And a batik is an art form where you would use melted wax to paint on a piece of fabric, and then you would dye it. So this is kind of a very simple version of batik. And again, it's like sending kind of a secret message. Now I'm noticing that my white crayon has a little bit of dirt on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, and in order to clean it off, I'm just going to make some scribbles in here. And that will help get my crayon white again. Now, like I said, you don't have to do yours this way. This is just a suggestion. And it seems like my white crayon doesn't want to get clean. So whatever. I'm just going to go with it. So I'm just going to add some kind of lines in here on the tail fin. All right. And then what I'm going to do is make a series of U's. I just think it might be really interesting to have that show through. So I'm just going to keep going until I basically fill up my fish. And I'm going to try to go as fast as I can so you don't get too bored with it. All right. Oops. Now, you can see how I'm really bracing this paper here. This is a thin paper. It's pretty strong, but it's thin. So when I'm working with it, I'm kind of making, because I have to color a little bit dark or draw a little bit dark with my white crayon, I am just kind of bracing the paper as I'm doing this, just to, you know, make sure that it's not going to rip or get really crinkly. So wherever I'm drawing, I'm just kind of holding around it. And like I said, you don't have to do this. You might just want to draw some polka dots on your fish, or you could draw some just lines, or, you know, it's all up to you. It's your interpretation. And you know what you might want to do? You might actually want to listen to the music as you're creating your fish. Just like we did with the swift animals, you might want the music to kind of help you create or dictate what you're going to create. All right, so you can kind of see, thanks to my white crayon being a little bit dirty, that you can see my scales. All right, now I'm just going to take my washable marker, and I'm not adding a whole lot of color. I am maybe just going to do possibly a little bit of a pattern here, because this color is really going to bleed when we paint it with water. So I'm choosing to use a color family, meaning that they all have at least one color in common on the color wheel. And so you can kind of see I'm going for the green color family. Let's see. And the color they have in common is yellow and blue. But I'm going to use yellow to kind of keep it a little bit lighter. All right. Can you make it as colorful as you want? Absolutely. I'm going to add maybe some blue right in here. And you see how this one is not such a strong color? That is absolutely fine, because we know what happens when we add the water. In fact, what I might do is add some blue here. All right. Now, one thing I want you to remember, keep this in mind, that once we start painting, you have to remember that you must let this dry if you want to add more color. If you don't, you will most definitely rip this paper. All right. So you want to really be sure. I'm going to paint this area first, And I think I want to add some color here. So I think I'm going to come back with my yellow because I know I'm not going to want to wait. And I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow here. All right, maybe I'll add just a wee bit of yellow up here. Now I'm going to wait to do the head, all right, for now. And maybe I'm going to make the fin yellow. Okay, so I'm going to take a smaller brush just to see what's going to happen and get started, all right? And you can kind of see, look at what happens with this paper. So you'll keep the design a little bit, but it's such a fun paper to use. You will create a tie-dye effect. And it doesn't smear or spread immediately, but it will. You have to just be a little bit patient. Now I can tell already that I'm going to want to come back and use some more color. And I love it, friends, when I do something and I'm like, ooh, I'm glad they can see this, because maybe I would have made a different decision had I known this is what was going to happen. So what I'm saying here is that I wish I would have maybe added just more than just a hue of color, that maybe I would have added like a polka dot of color, and that might have gotten me the effect that I wanted. But look, when I'm looking up here, look at how that has really changed. Look at how that has really like created that effect that I wanted. This is why I really encourage you to use more than just one color, and that you use colors from the same color family. If I were to use orange and green and let's say purple, friends, you're just going to end up with a brown sea animal. And maybe that's what you want. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But all I want to say to you is just really think about your color choice and try to think about how you can get them to work together to make a beautiful kind of tie-dye effect. So you can see how this bled a little bit too into my fish's head, which I'm totally fine with. I forgot to draw the mouth, so I'm going to do that. All right. So up here, I think what I want to do is I'm going to maybe outline with this kind of turquoisey color. All right, like that. And around the eye, I think I'm going to do blue around the eye. And I'm going to tell you that chances are super high that I'm going to get a color in there. So if I could find my white crayon, I think what I'm going to do quick is just color the inside of my eye so that doesn't happen. Or maybe it'll be less likely to happen. All right. Okay. So I'm going to do that, and I think I'll add some yellow here. And maybe I'll kind of continue with the type of pattern again, or maybe not. Maybe I'm just going to add one more color like this green. I love this green color. All right. And now I'm going to paint again. Just adding water. So when this all finishes, when it's done drying, and it will dry fairly fast. Like if it's a nice day out, you can probably just set this outside and let it dry. But be really careful when you're picking it up. You could even put a piece of copy paper underneath, and you might actually end up with a super cool print in the end. So I'm going to kind of set this down over here a little bit more to get it off of that mess. But I'm just going to show you, like I can tell, like when this dries, I might want to come in and add more color in here. But you can see already how nicely the wax crayon is showing up. Now, when I'm done with all this, I've also supplied, if you're in the classroom, your teachers with some yarn. And you can decide if you want to connect some yarn to it by stapling to it, but remember, only do this when it is dry. And what the yarn will do is help create the idea of movement. So the idea here is for you to use this to move to the song, to the music, for Miss Songbird's class. So using art as a tool of movement. So you could add the yarn and tie a piece of yarn to a stick and use it like a flag to move with. You could just hold it in your hand and use it as a tool to move with. But what we're trying to do is create a prop, if you will, that you can use to perform your dance or your movement for Miss Songbird's class. Anyway, I hope you have fun creating this. It's a really, I really love this paper. It's a fun medium to use, and you can create something super, super beautiful. All right, friends, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.